Good afternoon. My name is Rudy, and today we're going to discuss the support, resistance, and trend lines. Now, first of all, what is support and resistance and trend lines? Now, support and resistance is basically how it works is when a share reaches a certain point in time, let's say it reaches a floor and a ceiling. So whenever it reaches a floor, then it can cause a bounce back in a bullish momentum, and when it reaches a ceiling, it can cause a bounce back in a bearish momentum. So let's quickly head over to our tool. So at the top left-hand corner, you'll see you have the select tool function, and underneath the select tool function, you have the horizontal line. So basically all it is it's two horizontal lines which the share would bounce between. Okay, so your support and your resistance. Now, first of all, you can go and change your line color. For instance, if we want a red line, we can select a red line, and then also we can go and we can select the thickness of the line. So let's go with a little bit of a thicker line to make it easier to see. So first of all, your support line, how you pull it in is you look for your bounce points. So for instance, you've got a bounce point over here, and you've got another bounce point over there. And then also you can use your tops, your previous tops, like for instance, these two over here. Okay, to pull in your support line. It's like over there, that would be a support, which means that your share is supporting on top of this line over here. So whenever a share goes up and comes back down again, it will support on that line and then go back up again. And then when it falls down, it will support on the line again and try to bounce back in a bullish trend. And that can also happen from top to bottom, which you call your resistance. So at the bottom is your support, and then at the top would be your resistance. So let's go with another color for this. Now your resistance, for instance, in this case, would be more or less in this area over here. Now, usually you would go and look at the historical data, like for instance, you'll see that there is a resistance, and then that would correspond with the next resistance over there. So that would, for instance, be your resistance. Okay, so that's basically where the share would go in a sideways momentum between the two lines. Okay, so if it goes up, it bounces against the top line to go down again, and then supports on the bottom line, bounces back up, and then sometimes it will break through. And that's what you're looking for, is those breakthrough points, especially if you're trying to trade instead of invest, and you want a quick buy in. Then you would buy in once it breaks this resistance line in a bullish momentum. And then if you want to do, let's say, a short, then you would wait for the share to go down and break through the bottom line. All right, so through your support, so that the share can start going in a downward trend. Now, mainly where you would use this as well is mostly from the golden goose side, where you will have a support and a resistance line, and then obviously a potential upside with a potential downside. Now, potential upside and potential downside also counts as support and a resistance line. So that's basically on previous support lines and previous resistance. So if we go back in history, if the share has to go down, all right, if the share has to fall, let's say it went in a bearish direction, it broke through this line, then it would have had a potential downside to go all the way down to more or less over there. Okay, so this would have been its previous support and resistance. Okay, so if the share had to fall through this line, then the next place that it can go to would be this bottom line over here. Okay, so that would count then as your new support if it breaks through here. If the share, like for instance, what it did now, it broke through this resistance, so it means that it's got a potential upside now. So we can always go back into our historical data, and we can see that our next one would be the peak. Okay, so we'll see that the peak is obviously corresponding with this top over here. So let's just give it another color again. So now resistance would be over there. So that's the potential upside. So it's got a potential to grow from this current point where it broke through to the next resistance. Okay, so if it goes through the next resistance, then obviously your resistance will become your support again. Okay, so it would be like, for instance, this line now would be the current support because it broke through the resistance. So now obviously your resistance becomes your new support. So now the share has potential to go between these two lines. All right, if it breaks through it, then obviously your next point would be to go to there. Next point would be to go to the highest point possible. Okay, but currently we're only going to focus on these points that we have here, all right, these 4 lines that we've got in. So it's got a potential upside to go to the next line. So current price sitting at 282 rand and 29 cents, and it's got potential to go all the way up to 298 rand and 97 cents. Okay, so that's mainly how the support and the resistance work. It works. It's basically to tell you that to show you where the share is heading to in a sideways trend. But once it breaks through the resistance or the support, it's got the potential to go to the next point. Okay, or the potential in a bullish trend, or the potential to go into the next point in a bearish trend. Okay, so it's mainly for sideways, your sideways trends. Okay, then also when it breaks through, that would be when you climb in. Once it breaks through your resistance, or breaks through your support in a downward trend, like for instance over here, that would have been a really good trade to go in. Okay, well, it broke through here, went down to that line, it supports it on the line, and then from there on it went up again. So this would have been more of a long term then, where this would have been your short term, where it broke through. So it had a more rapid response. And you'll see each time when a share breaks through that line, it will have a more or less of a rapid movement in an upward trend, or a rapid movement in a downward trend. Okay, once it breaks through those lines. Now the other line would be your trend line. Now your trend lines you can use in the same manner, also with the supports and the resistance, where first of all the trend line shows you what the current trend is. Now to pull in the trend line is a bit different. Okay, so you're going to go to your select tool once again, select your line, give it a color, whichever color you'd like, with the preferred thickness, or you can even make it little dots or lines. And once you click on your first spot, so to pull it in, first of all, is really easy. Don't click and drag it. Okay, you'll need to click once, and then you go and you click on your second spot. Okay, so always click once, click on your second spot, and it will leave the line. Now, to pull it in on certain points, it's going to be the same as your bounce points on your support and resistance. You're going to look for all your possible bounce points. So first of all, we're going to start at the bottom here. Click on that first spot, our lowest point that we can gather, and then go to the next point. Okay, so there's bounce point, went down, bounced again, went up, broke through this line, okay, bounced here, but it went all the way down to this line here and bounced on it because that's the support. So it didn't want to go through the support. Okay, so that's your trend. So the overall trend over there is in a bullish trend. Okay, and then you can do the same for the higher points. So I can take my higher points, click on my first point, and then more or less try and get it parallel to the other line. Okay, so I'm going to put it straight over there. Okay, so it's parallel to my bottom line, and that's basically where your share would bounce between. It will bounce between those lines. Okay, so there's bounce point 1, 2, and 3. So you'd mainly want 3 bounce points for both of these lines. Okay, and that will also count now as support and resistance. All right, same as these normal 2 horizontal supports and resistance. These ones would be your trend support and resistance. So we can see that is what the current trend is. The trajectory of the share would be heading in that direction in a bullish momentum, and it's going to keep on bouncing between these 2 lines. So the closer it gets to that line, the more likely it is that can bounce on that line, or if it breaks through, then it can go to the potential upside. Okay, so and you can also use the trend lines for downwards or direction as well, not only for an upwards direction to see what the overall trend is downwards, but use that downwards trajectory to basically see when would be the best time to go and buy in. Now, a good example of that, if we quickly remove these two, if we take the historical data over here, if we take a line from this top point and we drag it down to this point over here, Okay, we'll see that we've got a few bounce points. We've got 1, 2, 3 bounce points. There's a fourth one. And then if we have to go to this date of here, we'll see that that would have been a breakthrough. Okay, so meaning that it's ending this trend. Okay, so our trend line is over here. It's ending the trend in its downwards direction, and that would have been more likely the place where you could have bought into GLD. Okay, and we can see that the share ended the bearish trend and went up from there. Okay, you can also use it for your bottoms if you want to pull in your bottom lines, but with your bottom line sometimes you won't really get a perfect two perfect parallel lines, depending on which direction you're looking at it, but there's our parallel lines running right next to each other. Sometimes you will find that it can go into a cone shape, but you don't want it to go cone, you want it more or less parallel to your other line. Okay, so that would have been the downward trend, ending the trend once it broke through this top trend line. Okay, and from there on out, the share started to move sideways between our support and resistance, and eventually it started a new trend in a bullish trend. Okay, and then we can use our top lines to see what the trajectory is. Okay, and it's going to continue going between these two lines, and then eventually when it breaks through this bottom line, it's just ending the trend. Okay, same as what happened over here. That was the downward trend. It ended the trend and it went in a bullish momentum. And then after it went, and then now what we're waiting for is to end this bullish momentum eventually. Okay, but it's got potential upsides. Okay, it can go to its highest point, which was over here, or it can go to the current resistance. So once it resists against that line, it might come down back to the support. Okay, if it doesn't go back to the support, the only other option it has is go back to the trend line. If it breaks through the trend line, then it can go back to the next support. Okay, and so on and so forth, and it can continue bouncing between those lines. Okay, so that's the basics of your support and your resistance and your trend lines. I mean, there are many other sources out there to explain to you also how support and resistance and trend lines can help you with your buying choices. And also this would go along with your converging and diverging. If you go and look at my convergence and divergence video, this would basically correspond to your convergence and divergence with RSI. So you can use this method alongside with convergence and divergence to see exactly when the share is going to start turning around on RSI and stochastic plus using support and resistance and trend lines. And then you've got the perfect recipe for success, okay, by using this extra method. And as I said, you can make the lines whichever colors you want. You can change it to dots or little lines, so that you can differentiate which line is which to make it easier for yourself. Okay, so that's it for the support and resistance. If you've got any other questions, you're more than welcome to give us a call. Go to the website underneath contact us. There's all our contact details. More than welcome to contact me directly on that number during office hours. After our support numbers, you can speak to any one of our technicians or just send us an email and we can answer your questions. Okay, so I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend further, and then I hope to see you in Monday evening's webinar.